As a low-ranking foot soldier in feudal Japan, your status was defined by loyalty and lineage. As the son of a samurai, you were born into service and your life revolved round the whims of your lord. Your days began before sunrise, training with woodland sword and spear, learning to fight as part of an intricate, well-oiled machine. Victories in battle would bring you closer to your lord, but defeat or even a single moment of hesitation could bring shame and disgrace upon him and your family. When not training, you maintained your armor, polished your weapons, and performed menial tasks for your fellow samurai. Life for you was austere, regimented and dangerous. Your home was a simple paper-walled hut. Food consisted of rice, fish, pickled vegetables and miso soup. You knew the sting of hunger and the ache of cold. Respect was given and demanded based on rank. You understood the delicate balance of power that held your world together. A slight to a superior could mean banishment or worse, and even a whisper of criticism of the shogun could result in a quiet death by seppuku. Despite it all, you took pride in your rule. To be a samurai, no matter the rank, was to be part of an honorable, albeit rigid caste. It was a life of duty, but also of quiet camaraderie forged in the crucible of shared danger. The bonds you formed with your fellow soldiers transcended the restrictions of your social standing. In the heat of battle or during quiet moments round the campfire, you found solace in the company of those who understood the weight of their calling. But your life was far from the romanticized image of a lone samurai. You were a cog in a military machine, replaceable and expendable. When battles were over, you returned home carrying not just physical wounds, but also the psychological scars of violence. For many, the transition back to civilian life was difficult. The skills and mindset of a warrior didn't easily translate into the world of farming or commerce. And so some foot soldiers remained in the service of their lords, even in times of peace, forming a sort of underclass of samurai, forever bearing the scars of battle, both seen and unseen. Their story is a testament to the quiet cost of war, reminding us that behind the legends of valor and glory, there exists a deeper, more somber reality. They are the forgotten heroes, the nameless faces of a bygone era, whose silent sacrifices shape the course of history. Now, let's delve into one of Japan's most famous tales, that of the 47 Ronin. But instead of the epic tale you might have heard, we'll explore it through the eyes of one of the low-ranking samurai involved. Imagine the biting chill of a winter night in 18th century Japan. You are a samurai, not of the highest rank, but bound by duty and honor to your lord, Lord Asono. Life at court is a mix of intrigue and tedium. One day, a confrontation with Kira, a higher-ranking lord, results in your master's banishment and your own demotion to a low-ranking samurai. Kira, now disgraced, lives under the protection of the shogun. You and your fellow samurai, known as Ronin after losing your lord, gather in secret, bound by vengeance. Years pass. Plans are made and abandoned. Patience becomes your virtue. Finally, the moment arrives. You and your comrades infiltrate Kira's mansion. The air is thick with tension as you close in on your target. But the tale you know ends there. But what comes next? For you, the mission is a success, but at what cost? The thrill of vengeance is tempered by the realization of what has been sacrificed. Loyalty, honor, and ultimately, life itself. In this tale, you are not a celebrated hero, but a ghost, a nameless face in a crowd, your existence defined by your master's honor and your unswerving commitment to his legacy. Your story is one of quiet courage and unwavering commitment, a testament to the complexities of a world where honor and vengeance intertwined to create a haunting melody. Now, we turn our attention to the shadows of feudal Japan, where a different kind of battle was fought. As a commoner living in Edo, Japan, you navigated a world where the slightest misstep could bring swift and brutal punishment. Amidst this rigid society, a secret blossomed Christianity. Attracted by its message of equality and love, you find solace and community in this new faith. But this newfound belief comes at a cost. Open practice of Christianity was outlawed. So you and your fellow converts gather in secret, sharing your faith through whispers and coded messages. Symbols of your faith become hidden within everyday objects. A cross carved into a wooden box, a rosary disguised as a string of prayer beads. Your home transforms into a sanctuary, where walls hold prayers and family members take on secret names to avoid detection. Days are filled with the constant fear of discovery. The slightest rumor could lead to an interrogation by the shogun's agents. Tools become symbols of oppression and neighbors turn into potential informants. Despite the danger, your faith grows. Acts of charity and quiet acts of worship bind the community together. When persecution intensifies, you are forced to flee your home. With only the clothes on your back and a small Bible hidden in your robes, you join other refugees, walking for days to escape the reach of the authorities. Eventually, you settle in a new community where the rhythm of life slows. Homes are rebuilt and a new church is established, but always with a wary eye towards the future. Your story is one of resilience, faith and quiet resistance in the face of overwhelming odds. You are a nameless hero, a commoner turned martyr, whose story helps us understand the human cost of religious persecution and the quiet strength of faith. Finally, we arrive at the pinnacle of power and privilege in Edo, Japan, the residence of a powerful daimyo. Here, every action is dictated by a strict code of conduct, from the smallest gesture to the grandest feast. You are immersed in a world where silk robes conceal a skeletal frame and meals consist of exotic delicacies served on 24-karat gold plates. Every morning begins with a ritual bath, followed by the donning of garments with multiple layers of silk undershirt and a heavy outer robe. Your domain is vast, encompassing everything from rolling hills to humble villages. But you rarely venture outside its borders. Instead, you spend your days in elaborate ceremonies and endless meetings with retainers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries. Each interaction is a test of etiquette, where a misplaced glance or a wrong turn could be misinterpreted as an insult. Rival daimyo vie for power and influence, and alliances shift like sand dunes in a desert storm. Secret plots and betrayals simmer beneath the surface of politeness. Your evenings are spent in the company of geishas and prostitutes, where music and poetry mingle with games of chance and subtle seduction. All around you, slaves tend to your every need, from polishing your armor to fanning you as you sit on a lacquered throne. But beneath the surface of opulence, there is discontent. Peasants struggle with heavy taxes, and the memory of past battles lingers like a half-healed wound. You are a pawn in a game of power, caught between tradition and change. And as the mighty shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu looms large, casting a long shadow over your domain, you wonder just how secure your privileged existence truly is. Welcome to my world, where life is a delicate dance of power, duty, and unending rituals. Remember, in this world, even the greatest lords are merely pawns in a larger game, and the smallest misstep could spell ruin for all. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until next time. May your steps be sure and your spirit unbroken. Imagine yourself waking just before dawn. There's no bed. You've slept on the bare earth or a pack mat, wrapped in a ruff, all slicked cloak to ward off the dew. Your breath is visible in the chill morning air, and your joints ache not because you're old, but because yesterday Like the day before, you march for hours. The soles of your straw sandals are worn smooth. You are a foot soldier, an ashigaru, one of thousands. Though technically a member of the samurai class, your life bears little resemblance to the stories of noble duels or elegant poetry. You are a servant of your lord, bound by duty and by the will of your commander. You carry what you are told, go where you are ordered, and fight when commanded. You are, in the eyes of your superiors, replaceable. You reach for your gear. It is heavy. Layered cotton armor lacquered to resist the rain clings to your torso. Over it, a breastplate of iron or leather, if you are lucky. Your conical helmet, known as a jingasa, rests nearby. It's made of wood or metal, strapped tightly to your forehead. It presses just a little too hard against your temples, but you've learned not to complain. Slung across your back is your spiriari. It is long, sharp, and unforgiving. Unlike the ornate swords of higher-ranking samurai, the yari is a tool of war, plain and practical. You're trained to thrust, hold the line, and press forward in formation, even when everything in your body wants to flee. Breakfast, if there is any, consists of rice, often cold, and perhaps some pickled vegetables or miso soup, thin and lukewarm. You eat quickly. There is no ceremony. Soon, the signal to move will sound. When the march begins, the sound of feet is all you hear. Straw sandals slapping dirt, the low creak of armor shifting. You travel as a unit. The air is thick with sweat and dust, even early in the day. You keep your eyes down, focused on the road, on the man ahead of you, and on keeping pace. Slowing down is frowned upon. Falling behind is shameful. Sometimes you march for hours, sometimes for days. Lodging, if it can be called that, varies. A field is stable, a cramped tent shared with others. Privacy is a luxury you no longer expect. When battle comes, there is no warning. A shouted command, the signal of drums. You line up, shoulder to shoulder with other men, all of you holding spears forward, bracing. Archers may have already fired volleys, arrows whizzing past. Thudding into shields or flesh, you try not to look, try not to think. You're not trained to fight. One-on-one, not like the elite warriors on horseback. Your role is to press forward as a wall, to jab, push, and not break formation. If you survive, you clean your weapon in silence and wait for the next day. If you're wounded, there may be no doctor. Perhaps a monk will offer a prayer. If you die, your name may not be remembered beyond the battlefield. And yet, you are samurai. In title, at least. Your birth determined your rank. Not your skill. Not your heart. You were born to serve. To die, if necessary. For honor, they say. For your lord. But on a field very far away, when the rain seeps through your armor and your feet bleed inside straw sandals. When the rice runs out and the lice bite, and the man next to you coughs all night, feverish and shivering. Still, you do not complain. The seasons pass. Spring becomes summer. The cherry blossoms fall. You watch them from afar. When you are lucky enough to have a day without marching, they drift silently through the air, beautiful, indifferent. You wonder if anyone at home still remembers your name, but the signal sounds again. It is time to move. The rhythm of your life continues measured in footsteps, orders, and silence, always silence. Let us now drift forward in time, gently, to the early 18th century. The age of grand battles is fading. The land, once fragmented by constant war, is now united under the Tokugawa shogunate. Peace reigns across Japan, at least on the surface. Beneath that calm veneer, ancient codes of conduct still hold sway, especially for the samurai, now serving more as bureaucrats and courtiers than warriors. It is within this quietly rigid world that a peculiar and haunting story unfolds, a story that begins not with bloodshed, but with etiquette, in the year 1701. To daimyo regional lords arrived in Edo, the seat of power and politics. Their names were Asano Naganori and Kami Korihaika. Both were tasked with a ceremonial duty to prepare for an imperial envoy visiting from Kyoto. They were young, proud, and not especially experienced in the refined arts of courtly behavior. To assist them, the shogunate assigned the senior court official, an older man named Kira Yushinaka. Kira was known for his knowledge of protocol, but also for his arrogance, according to later accounts. He was unkind, dismissive. Perhaps he expected bribes or gifts for his guidance. And when they did not come, he made his displeasure known, whether by insult, condescension, or cruel whisper. He provoked something in Lord Asano one day in the corridors of Edo Castle. Asano drew his short sword and struck. It was a violation not just of etiquette, but of law. To shed blood within the shogun's castle was unthinkable. The attack wounded Kira slightly, but it wounded Asano far more deeply. That same day, without trial, the young lord was ordered to perform seppuku, ritual suicide. His domain was confiscated, his family line abolished, his retainers were dismissed. Among those retainers was a man named Yishi Yoshio, quiet, thoughtful, loyal. As the castle gates closed behind him and his fellow samurai, they became what all masterless warriors became. Ronin, a word that means wave man, a man adrift and tethered, without purpose. And yet, they had a purpose, a quiet one, a long one. Yishi and 46 others made a vow. They would avenge their lord, but they knew they could not act immediately. The shogunate was watching. Kira was protected. Any obvious move would lead to their swift arrest. So they disappeared into ordinary life. Some became merchants, others wandered. Yishi himself took to drinking. He frequented the pleasure districts, appearing as a man who had abandoned his duty, even his dignity. For nearly 2 years, they waited. It was not glorious. It was not romantic. It was waiting with uncertainty, fear, and quiet determination. Each man knowing that if they acted, they would almost certainly die. Then, on a snowy December night in 1702, they struck 47 men, dressed in armor, quietly surrounded Kira's estate. They entered without fanfare, with care, subduing guards and searching every room. When they finally found Kira trembling, hiding, they offered him the chance to die with honor. He refused, so they executed him with precision, without cruelty. They then marched to their lord's grave and placed Kira's head before it. Honor had been fulfilled. The aftermath was complicated. The shogunate was torn. The Ronin had broken the law, but upheld the samurai code of loyalty. In the end, the shogun permitted them to die by seppuku, a sentence they accepted calmly, with ceremony. They were buried beside their master. Today, their graves are visited often, by tourists, by pilgrims, by the curious. The story of the 47 Ronin has become legendary, told in countless plays, poems, and films. Often, it is portrayed as a tale of noble revenge, of loyalty beyond death. But in truth, it is quieter than that. It is the story of patient sorrow, of a long winter, of cold meals and colder thoughts, of men who waited, and in waiting, became part of history. Imagine them scattered across the city, pretending to forget what they had vowed, while every step, every glance, carried the weight of that promise. Not just warriors, but ghosts of a fallen lord lingering until their duty was done. Now, let us move even more quietly into the realm of secrecy. In the same period of peace known as the Edo era, when the shogunate ruled with careful order and surveillance, there was a presence in the shadows, not an army, nor a rebellion, but something more subtle. Something whispered, passed hand to hand in the form of a charm, a carved statue, or a quiet prayer. Christianity had arrived in Japan in the 16th century, brought by European missionaries, most notably the Jesuits. At first, it was tolerated, sometimes even welcomed. Some daimyo found in this foreign faith a useful ally, or at least a way to access European trade. Thousands converted, churches were built, bells rang in Nagasaki, and crosses were carried openly. But times changed. As the Tokugawa shogunate solidified its power, it saw foreign influence as a threat. Christianity was not merely a religion, it was a bridge to European powers, and an allegiance to a god and church outside of Japan's authority. In time, it became illegal, not discouraged, but outlawed, punished, and so the Christians went underground. They became what history remembers as the Kokyo Kirishiten, the hidden Christians. Their faith did not disappear, it transformed publicly. They practiced Buddhism or Shinto as required. But in secret, they gathered in small groups, often at night. No churches, no altars, just homes, kitchens, or caves, where a few trusted souls would whisper the old prayers. Over generations, their practices shifted. Lacking priests, they passed down rituals orally. Words faded or changed, becoming a blend of Latin, Portuguese, and Japanese. Statues of the Virgin Mary were disguised as canon. The Bodhisattva of compassion, rosaries were made from rice beads, crosses were hidden inside. Family heirlooms all beneath floorboards. Imagine opening a lacquer box, appearing unremarkable, and finding within it a crude carving of a crucifix, worn smooth by countless hidden touches. Or imagine lifting a curtain in a family room and seeing a tiny alcove, just large enough for a candle and a secret prayer. The risk was immense. Authorities actively hunted for Christians. They were made to tremble on images of Christ or Mary Fumi as a test of loyalty. Refusal meant imprisonment or death. Some complied with sorrow, others refused, and vanished into the system of punishment. But many simply endured quietly, patiently, with resilience woven into their daily lives. In some villages, the memory of these hidden practices endured for over 2 centuries. Families passed down stories, rituals, and relics through generations. Even as the original meaning blurred, the prayers survived in fragments, the rituals adapted to ensure survival. It was not until the late 19th century, when Japan reopened to the world, that the existence of the hidden Christians was publicly rediscovered. Missionaries returned. But not all of the hidden Christians wished to rejoin the mainstream church. By then, their faith had become something unique. Not quite Catholicism, not quite something else. A quiet lineage of devotion, shaped by silence, even today, on remote islands like Akitsuki and parts of Nagasaki. Small communities preserve traces of this hidden history. In lullabies, in customs, in stones carved with unfamiliar crosses. It is a story not of loud martyrdom, but of long endurance, of lives lived in tension between faith and survival, secrecy and identity. And now, as you rest here, imagine the rhythm of such a life, rising early to tend to fields, offering incense at the household shrine, and then, when the house is still and the moon is high, lighting a single candle and reciting a prayer in a tongue you do not fully understand, but have always known. A life where belief is a quiet act of courage, repeated not once, but every single day. We've walked through the mud alongside foot soldiers, we've waited in silence with the Ronin, and we've knelt behind paper screens with those who dared to believe in secret. Now, let us ascend, gently, to another world, high above the common footpaths and the crowded towns, perched upon hilltops or tucked deep within valleys, were the castles of the daimyo Japan's feudal lords, massive structures of stone and wood, wrapped in white plaster and laid roofs. These castles were not just military fortresses. They were symbols of wealth, of authority, of power maintained through ritual, structure, and an unshakable sense of order. Inside these castles, life moved according to rules so complex and precise. They were almost a language of their own. Imagine approaching such a castle. The road is lined with pine trees, carefully trimmed. Guards stand motionless. You are not here to fight, but to serve or to observe. And as the heavy gates open, a different rhythm begins, slower, more deliberate, measured inside. There are layers of space, outer courtyards for warriors and retainers, inner courtyards for administrators and servants, and deepest within, beyond heavy sliding doors, lies the inner palace, where the daimyo resides. The walls are made of paper, but don't mistake that for fragility. Every step echoes in silence. Tatami mats must not be stepped on in the wrong way. Your posture matters, so does your voice, your gaze, your timing. And if you are among the inner attendants or the daimyo himself, then the evening brings not chaos, but ceremony. Let us sit, now, at the edge of the ghost and gnome are the lord's formal dining room. Dinner in the castle is not a casual affair. It is a performance. Food is brought on lacquered trays, each dish ranged with care and symbolism. There is rice, naturally, miso soup, of course, but also pickled vegetables ranged like little sculptures, grilled river fish served with salted plum, and tiny bowls of tofu skin. Folded like silk, there is little conversation, not because the room is cold, but because words must be chosen carefully. A wrong phrase, a poorly timed laugh, a slip of the tongue, or could offend. Attendants move silently, changing dishes with well-practiced bows. No detail is overlooked. Even the charcoal under the brazier has been arranged to represent the proper seasonal pattern. Now and then, the daimyo may speak, a quiet comment on the weather, a reference to a poem, and nod to a visiting guest. Each word is a signal of power, of intellect, of refinement. Elsewhere in the castle, a different kind of evening unfolds. In the women's quarters, known as the oku, concubines and noble women live in another world altogether. Their lives are also bound by rules sometimes gentle, sometimes suffocating. They oversee poetry contests, practice calligraphy, and care for children, all within the walled garden of their rank. Some wield influence quietly over politics, over alliances, over the mood of the castle itself. Others live quietly, their names lost to time, as servants below cooks, maids. Footmen move with practiced steps. They rarely see the lord, but they feel his presence in every command passed down the chain. Their work must be flawless, quiet, unseen. Outside the castle walls, the town sleeps. Commoners dream of the harvest, of debts to pay, of sons serving in distant provinces, but within the stone walls, among the carefully lit lanterns and the soft sweep of silk sleeves, life continues as it has for generations. Every bow, every dish, every note of the court musician song, it all reinforces the order of things. And yet, this too is a kind of performance. Because even the daimyo answers to someone. The shogunate watches. The balance of power is delicate. A wrong alliance, a poorly judged feast, a moment of excess, and even the highest lord can fall. So he eats, he nods. He reclines in his chamber, under layers of embroidered silk, the walls round him silent. And he waits for morning, just as you do now, in quiet, in comfort, in the rhythm of routine. And now, our journey comes to a close. From the weary march of the foot soldier to the quiet resolve of the 47 Ronin, from whispered prayers hidden behind closed doors to the echoing halls of a daimyo's castle, we have walked, softly, through many layers of Japan's feudal past. What connects them all is not glory, or violence, or triumph, but something calm and human. Structure, silence. Entrance, for those who lived in this world, whether at the bottom of the hierarchy or high atop the castle walls, life was measured not in comfort, but in duty, in repetition, in 100 quiet choices made each day, to bow, to wait, to obey, to believe. And yet, in that repetition, there was also rhythm. A foot soldier's steps across packed turf. A Ronin's long breath in the winter air, a secret prayer passed down in fading whispers, a lacquered tray placed just so, beneath the flicker of candlelight. These rhythms carried people through uncertainty, through suffering, through silence, and for some, through centuries of waiting, as you lie here now, still and warm, surrounded by the gentle familiarity of your own world. Perhaps you can sense just a little of their presence, the distant footsteps of history, fitting into the quiet. There is peace in knowing how far we've come, how much the world has changed, and how much of it beneath the surface still echoes the same patterns, the same hopes, the same quiet rituals of care and survival. So close your eyes if you haven't already, and let your thoughts drift like cherry blossoms on the wind. Softly, slowly, the story will wait for you, and in the stillness of the night, as the past folds gently into sleep, you are safe. Good night.